Hello, world, and welcome to our podcast where two pals with different viewpoints and thoughts who really don't know much discuss news, politics, conspiracy theories, and more. One's a genius, the other's an idiot. Are they both idiots?
Or are they both geniuses?
You be the judge. Now, live from beautiful Central Florida, welcome to Political No Brainer. Your host to your right and always right, it's me, Zach. And to your left and never right, it's Coach Trippy.
Coach Trippy,
Ladies and gentlemen, listen,
we got a
before
great
we get
guest tonight,
started,
Zach.
we got a big guest tonight. We got my brother from another mother, the Daniel Man DQ, the podcast extraordinaire from Profit and Paradox.
Prophet in Paradise.
Daniel, welcome to the
I liked it a
show.
lot.
Appreciate you guys for having me, man.
Little
It's gonna
golf
be,
claps for you
a
here
fun
from
time.
Florida.
Gonna be a fun time.
And
Thank
no,
you for joining
live
us.
from Central Florida and live from New Mexico. Daniel's in New
New
Mexico.
Mexico. Yes.
Albuquerque.
Albuquerque.
Really?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So tonight we wanted to have a guest on. I've been on his show a couple times, and we're bringing him on. And tonight we're gonna dive into some fun stuff. As you know, we like to free form, and Daniel is a rapper on the side. He's famous. You might not know that.
Kind of a big deal.
Kind of a big deal in his mind.
Big.
In his dog's
Bigly.
life. He has a big deal in his dog's life. Where are the puppies?
The
How come there's
biggest.
not like 70 of them on you?
They're over there following their mother around because she's moving food and nothing else matters.
That's right. Because she'll drop something and they'll be like, oh, crumb,
Correct.
crumb,
Exactly that. Yeah.
crumb. So I'm gonna get right into it. Tonight we have a very diverse audience. I didn't realize this, but Trippy, your mom's from Egypt, right?
Yes, sir.
That makes you more African American than Kamala, doesn't it?
I'm an African. No, I don't know how. Donald Trump seems to think he knows how African American she is, but we don't.
'Cause you're
I don't
black
know.
and black and black, y'all.
I don't
Uh,
know.
Listen, I got so many things running through my head right now. I want to talk about this Kamala's vice president choice. Give me reasons why you like him.
Well, he was a school teacher and a coach, and a high school football coach at that. And he brought home a football championship for his high school. Well, his team brought it home, but his leadership assisted quite a bit in that journey. And so now we call him coach, and we call Donald Trump's vice president JV for junior varsity because we've got a real vice
Here we
president,
go.
and,
All right.
and he's got somebody that's stalking Kamala Harris's plane, making jokes.
That
no
was
one
that
seems
dude.
to
That was the best.
understand.
That blew the internet up. I love it. He was so awesome for doing
You
that.
loved it, but the 70 or so people that were there are wondering, what in the world is this gentleman talking
Hey,
about?
but
Oh, he's
did
the
you
vice
happen to
president.
notice? Did you happen to notice the Secret Service chick was there? The Pat Secret Service chick.
The one that was with Trump?
Yeah,
You just
she
call
she
him a
looked like
Pat
she was
Secret
like,
Service chick.
yeah. Do you remember the girl Pat from Saturday Night Live?
From the
Oh,
90s.
yeah. Dude,
So
that
I
was
wonder-
her. Oh my goodness, they're shooting. I don't know what to do.
Well, that's the one that's been assigned to her
You should
by
hear Lori
Kamala's.
She's killing it.
Kamala's in charge of assigning teams.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, she's the president now, right?
No,
think
she's
so.
not.
Where's Sleepy Joe? Has anybody seen him?
He
He's
negotiated a big deal. He got 16 Americans released from Russia. We only released 12 prisoners that we're not even hold captive. They're our
Oh,
European
man.
allies had them in their prison. So
I
he's
don't
doing
think I don't think he
presidential
did
thing.
it. He didn't do it.
It was his
sleeping.
negotiating.
He's eating ice
Just
cream when he's
happened.
going to sleep.
Nobody just said, "Oh my God, 16 prisoners have arrived at the airport."
So-
Whoa, what are those 12 Russians doing over there?
Let's dive,
orchestrated
let's dive back into this this vice president guy. So I'm going to give several reasons why I think he's the largest piece of doo-doo on the planet. Let's start off with the 8 babies that were murdered under his watch, and he didn't do anything about it other than changing a bill so they didn't have to report it anymore.
So I hadn't heard that. What I did hear is there is no time limit on abortions, and
They were pulled out and were living and left on the table to die a miserable, horrible death. And that didn't bother him. What bothered him is that he had to report it. So he signed a bill. There was no more reporting. But again,
So
number 2, let's go on with Tampon Timmy.
Hang on, let me ask
who-
this though. Was there a medical intervention option or did the babies die and then the legislation followed?
Yes.
There was a medical intervention option?
No.
No, they were
No.
going to die.
No. They were being aborted and they pulled him out alive and left him on the table to die.
Okay, so was the abortion botched?
I wasn't there. I'm just telling you what I've
I'm just
read.
saying I don't think we've got a birth that and then
Well,
and
all I know is
abortion.
he didn't like it, so he signed a bill so he doesn't have to report it because that's how people knew about it. Number two, he put tampons in the boys' rooms, fourth grade and up. What does a fourth grader need a tampon for? Daniel, could you cue us on that maybe?
I do not recall using a tampon in fourth grade, so I am not qualified to speak on the subject.
I don't have an opinion either.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
so,
I think, yeah, I think it was like
yeah,
sixth
tampon
grade.
Timmy, whatever. First of
I
all,
don't- I don't
why would you need a tampon in the bathroom of any boy's bathroom?
If I had any opinion, I would just say I'm not so sure that's a governor's executive order or not. I'm sure it's a school administrator's executive order, but I'm not sure it's a governor's executive order.
And then during the alleged BLM peaceful riots, he sat and watched Minnesota burn. And
Like
his
Trump
wife
wants Washington D.C. burn.
and there was no burning in Washington D.C. January 6th was the biggest hoax, and it was Pelosi's
That was a
idea.
hoax, but
It was
Tim
Pelosi's idea.
Walz
So
is-
let me finish.
Walz's riot was real.
Go look at Minneapolis. It burned to the ground.
I'm looking at the video of January 6th.
And then go listen to what his wife said. I left the windows open in the house so I could smell the burning of the tires and buildings because this was history in the making.
Well, that's his wife.
What? If my wife said that, she'd get knocked out.
Right on the video?
Right
What are
there.
you
I bring her.
talking
Come here. So, were you guys talking about this on your show the other night, Daniel?
No, we talked about none of this. The word tampon didn't even come up, which now I look back as a missed opportunity.
I should have came on. I knew it.
See, you missed your calling, bro. You missed out.
You had an opportunity. It was your missed opportunity.
I blew
yeah,
it.
there was a window
Literally.
and now it's closed. Literally.
No, I did catch. I saw the. By the way, I got to tell you this. I was really hoping Jonah was going to be on with you, and then man, you got me good because you were like, Jonah's not here. He's liberal tears drowned him or whatever. He left because he couldn't take it anymore. And then you said, no, I'm just kidding. He's in Greenland on vacation with his dad. And I was just about to be like, okay, that's fake news. You had me. I thought you got the liberal and you fake news. Fake news, Bigley. Daniel Bigley, fake news.
Bigly. No, you know what's funny? I'm listening to you guys talk right now, and it reminds me of like just like an old cartoon from back in the day where I'm listening to the cartoon whisper something over here in Zach's ear, and then he's over here in your ear, and you guys like are whispering stuff, and y'all are fighting about what you guys heard whispered, but nobody really knows what was actually said. Right? I'm sitting here listening. I'm like, none of you guys have actually debated a point that we're actually sure is real.
No. The tampon thing is real.
That part's real. Okay.
The eight abortions that were botched and let the babies die.
But you don't know the details of the situation.
I
right? Like,
don't.
there's a
But I
lot
do
of
know
nuance in
after
the
it
topic.
happened.
Or
he
the
wrote
or the following legislation that ensued.
But I do know
We
that
don't know how
after the
that
fact,
came
he
about.
wrote it into legislation that they did not have to report any more of those.
But in fairness, like Donald Trump, this rumor that's going around that Donald Trump is trying to act like he knows what race Kamala is, like that didn't happen. He didn't say that either, right? Like he never said that. He simply said she's always advertised herself as an Indian woman. Now she's advertising herself as a black woman. That's news to me. I didn't know that. Which, to be clear, has large elements of truth to it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't think that's universally true. I don't think she's ever denied her black heritage.
I think she's Jamaican, right?
I have no idea.
I don't
Yeah,
either.
and I don't know black ethnicity. I'm not a
Ethnicity.
But there's
That's how that works.
my tongue with it working.
Daniel has a great point, and Donald Trump's got a great point that
Oh.
she may have had. I don't know that she advertised herself as an Indian woman, but she may have. But now on the campaign, this is nothing new to politicians to use something to their advantage. So
Well, this is where the
and-
mudslinging comes in, and they're going for everything they
right,
can.
but then comes what is Tim Walz bring to the ticket? And like you said, you think he's a piece of doo-doo. What he's brought to the ticket in a lot of political experts are saying is he's brought a lot to the ticket as far as the sense of as far as the sense of making the team module, as far as reaching out to the Midwest, which is really where they need to make some gains. They seem to be doing that. And the only reason I'm bringing this point up, it's an important point I feel, is because I know that everybody's going to say if Donald Trump's loses, he was robbed. When you look at Donald Trump and his little mini-me, J.D. Vance, you haven't done anything to expand the voter base for the Donald Trump ticket. Whereas with Tim Walz, you have done something to expand the voter base for Kamala Harris. So when you look at the two approaches, I see Kamala Harris really changing the dynamic and creating an opportunity for her to win. So if Donald Trump loses, is really my main point here, I don't see how everybody's going to think he was robbed when, in fact, I don't think he was robbed in 2020, and I don't think he's going to be robbed in 2024. I think politics stinks, the system stinks, but in fact, the margin of error, both parties have agreed to let it go because it works for both of them at different times and different stages of elections.
So I have a question.
Go ahead.
You're obviously a Democrat, correct?
I am a registered Democrat. I consider myself a realist, but yes, I am a Democrat.
Okay, so just out of curiosity, because I always like having these conversations, right? I'm new to your audience. Anybody who knows me knows that I like to just really understand stuff. I'm not a big left-right guy. I think that whole game is kind of silly. But out of curiosity, what made you go down that road? Like, what led you to the conclusion, this is the belief system I want to follow, this is the direction I want to vote because these people align with my beliefs, or whatever led you to that conclusion?
So, to be honest with you, one time somebody asked me that, and I was actually at the time running for office. They said, what's the difference between a Democrat and a Republican? I said, the difference is Democrats champion the vulnerable, and Republicans work hard to see that there's a lot more vulnerable. And so, even though that wasn't really how I feel like Donald Trump took creating more vulnerable to the next level. So, for example, one of the things he did about people who apply for food stamps generally automatically qualify for kids' school-free meals. And I heard Donald Trump either looked into legislation or passed legislation that required the second application for kids' school-free meals. Now, you take parents that are beating the system on food stamps, they can sell those food stamps at a premium on the street, 50 cents on a dollar, 60 cents on a dollar. They can't do a damn thing with those free school lunches. So they're probably not going to go to the trouble applying for those free school lunches if it didn't automatically come with their food stamps. So I see a lot of kids going hungry because of that type of policy. So now what made me more of an adamant Democrat this cycle than I was before is Donald Trump. Again, he's very close to the Project 2025, which is just, for me, entirely too extreme. He makes it clear he knows nothing about it. Yes, he's flying around the country with people from the Heritage Foundation who created Project 2025. J.D. Vance wrote the foreword for Project 2025, but somehow the guy in charge doesn't know a single thing about Project 2025. The minute he finds out, it could very well bite him in the ass and his reelection bid. So
it's interesting to me, right? Like, because my question was, why do you align with Democrats? Your response was multiple reasons why you dislike Donald Trump. So
yeah, that's true. But I mean, so I told Zach,
yeah, but you've been a Democrat since you were a kid, right?
No, I was a fan of Ronald Reagan, but I was also a fan of Jimmy Carter. I loved Ronald Reagan.
But your favorite president was
Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter, right?
So to understand this, is the implication then that the reason you're a hardcore Democrat is simply because you dislike Trump so much?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so your foundational reasoning was that you believe that Democrats are champions for the people. Forget Donald Trump,
because for the vulnerable.
Okay,
neither
for the
party
vulnerable.
Champion the people.
Okay, so
champion the people is for the vulnerable. Yeah, if you're a person that's really dependent on Social Security, you got to be careful if Donald Trump gets in office. My guess is that there won't be Social Security for me when I retire, so I'm not counting on it.
Let's 86 Donald Trump and let's talk about the Democrats
without Donald Trump, give me a couple examples of what you think that any party, let's talk specifically about the Democratic Party, is doing right now to champion for the vulnerable. I'm interested in seeing a couple of examples.
Well, they're talking about, making daycare, childcare more available for working families, more affordable, government funded. They're talking about the one thing that I've always said that I did not like about Donald Trump is repeal the Affordable Care Act. I don't think it's perfect, but I think it's right for America. It really did a good job. So what I don't like about the Democratic Party, when you say I'm riding both sides of the fence, I don't like the fact that they now want to push it to socialized medicine. No, I want it what it is. I call the Affordable Care Act, I like to say the acronym they got it wrong. I call it the Available Care Act. People at any time in their life can get health care now. You can be diagnosed with a cancerous brain tumor and literally get an insurance agent to write you a policy at the same price because it's based on your age and your gender, not your medical condition, and you're not precluded because of a pre-existing medical condition. So that's something that really championed the vulnerable. It also gave people an enormous opportunity to tell their big-time employers to go to hell because I don't need your group plan anymore.
Hold on 1 second, guys.
Okay. So
we had a puppy emergency, guys. Give me 30 seconds. I'm listening, but I got to check on and make sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead. Absolutely. So is the Affordable Care Act was the Obamacare.
Yeah.
But here's the downside to Obamacare. If my wife, I had Obamacare with the family. Well, when Lorianne was not teaching, she took a sabbatical, a year off. So I had Obamacare because it was affordable. I'm not going to lie. It was what we could afford at the time, right? And my company that I worked for did not offer insurance. So the tough thing was a lot of doctors did not accept it. Even though it was Florida Blue or Florida, whatever it was, Blue Cross Blue Shield, but they didn't accept this certain form of it, right? The minute my wife got a job as a school teacher and was offered benefits, they told me, either you'll pay what we tell you have to pay, which was exuberant.
Right. Well,
you got to go under her insurance.
Start over with Daniel here.
Right.
No. I was listening, and I hear that. Here's my question. And Trippy, I know we have never met before, right? This is our first time interacting. Here's something that, and I've challenged Zach on stuff like this for 20 years. Zach will know I am the annoying guy that insists on having the perspective that nobody wants anybody to have, right? And so I tend to look at things from the outside. I just when everybody, like, what did Mark Twain say? When you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to seriously reconsider your position. Whether you're left or right.
I like it.
Yeah, well, and whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, you're on the side of a majority. And that for me is a problem, because anything I look back throughout my life and I see that there's a bunch of people going like this and espousing a bunch of opinions with more emotion than information, it never turns out well. And so I've come to Zach with this many times. And when he is like hard right and, just shouting and, these people sound dumb, the first question I'm going to say is like, well, prove it. Like you gotta have more than emotion to back up what you say. Otherwise, you're guilty of the same thing you're blaming other people for. And so when I look at this and I listen to things, what I enjoy doing, if you watch the podcast, you've heard me do this, I really like to listen to people's perspectives, because what I've found in my experience is most of us don't actually put a lot of thought into our opinions. We have a couple of perspectives that we tie emotions to, and then we get extremely reactionary about those opinions. And what we'll do is we put them as our soapboxes or as these monoliths that will allow our relationships and opinions to die on. These are the hills that our opinions die on, and our friends and family relationships will die on, because I want to talk about the Affordable Care Act, or I want to talk about abortion. I want to talk about, and then when I realize when you really break this all down, I ask myself the question, what are we really talking about? We used it as a joke at the very beginning. You guys were kind of going back and forth on these topics, but for the most part, neither one of these topics actually have any full legs. They're talking points at best, but what happens? The talking points become bickering points, and bickering points become debates, and debates become arguments. But when you get past all of that stuff and you ask yourself, what are we really talking about? Usually what you find is nothing. We're talking about what they're telling us to talk about. But when we peel back the onion, there's really nothing there. I look at the Affordable Care Act. I remember using the Affordable Care Act. I tried multiple times. I've been self-employed the majority of my life. I do not have health insurance now. I have not had health insurance the majority of my life since I got out of the military. Why? It's too freaking expensive. Doesn't make any sense to me. Now, is that an unwise decision? Maybe. But I remember going to the Affordable Care Act every single year because for whatever reason, you shouldn't be able to sign up for insurance when you need it. You got to wait for this special magical month because that makes sense.
And if you recall,
Okay,
you
cool.
had to do it or you got taxed on it.
Well, there's a couple points.
This is all insurance. This is all insurance. So I'm not attacking the Affordable Care Act. What I remember is for me, a person in his 30s at the time who was trying to sign up for insurance, my lowest deductible, period, was $5,000 to $10,000 a year. The great majority of human beings are not using enough coverage to need to spend $5,000 to $10,000 a year. So essentially, what you have is no health insurance. You're just paying cash. Time and time again, what you have is the illusion of health insurance. So then I ask myself the question is, okay, I don't know all of the details, nor will I pretend that I know the details as to why Trump decided he wanted to take that away. What I can tell you is that everybody that I personally know that used that, the Affordable Care Act wasn't actually solving a problem for the masses. It probably solved problems for a couple of people. And I don't think that those people's experiences should be diminished. But if those people, if let's say 5% of the people who used affordable, and I don't know, maybe it's 50, I don't know what the number is, but whatever that number is, if those percentage of people, let's say it's 50, were able to use it and it caused a fantastic experience, then my next question is, okay, well, what about the other 50? Because if the other 50 weren't benefited, then their stories matters as much as the ones who were. And what happens is when we get into these debates, we don't challenge our own views by this same level of scrutiny and say, okay, I'm a real big fan of the Affordable Care Act, and I'm going to use this as an excuse to hate Donald Trump because he should have kept it. It was great. Well, it wasn't great. It was great for some people. But what about the people to whom it was not great? And does that matter enough to be able to make a different decision? And I think that if I don't know the answer to that, if I can't speak on the people it didn't help as educatedly as I can on the people it did, outside of talking points, I'm not qualified to have an opinion on the topic. And I can't use that as an argument for why Trump's a bad guy. And I don't think we hold ourselves as a population to this level of scrutiny. And as a result, it gives us permission to talk crap about somebody because the talking point said it was bad. But the reality is, if we dug back behind the pills, maybe we don't really think it's bad. And I just wonder if you guys look at it like that. Trippy, I've never talked to you. I wonder if you look at to that level of scrutiny because I hold Zach to it every time I get.
Well, Zach was pointing out how he did have it, but then I think just tell me what you were saying.
Right. So I had it when Lorianne. You remember when Lorianne took the sabbatical? She took the year off when we lived.
Yeah, I don't want to speak here. I want you to tell that story.
Daniel, remember that when we lived in that door? Yeah. And she took the year off and she homeschooled Maxine. And anyway, so I was working and I was working at a car dealership, if I'm remembering. It was independent. They didn't offer insurance. We needed an insurance. So we got the Affordable Care Act. And as a matter of fact, that's when my trigeminal started too. So and that's why I remember it. And then Lorianne went back to school teaching. Next thing I know, I get a bill in the mail where our Affordable Care Act was $113 a month for the family. Suddenly went up to like $1,500 a month. And I said, whoa, what's going on? They said, your wife now has insurance through her school. And I said, okay, but I'm still an independent contractor. They're like, nope, you have to go under her or this is what you pay. And I was
I remember, now that you bring it up, I had my gallbladder removed around that same time.
I remember.
I had signed up for Obamacare and they covered none of it. None of it.
But the good news is when I had brain surgery, I was under my wife's insurance through the school and it covered it. And I only came out of pocket $1,500 for a $750,000 insurance.
How do they not cover any of it?
I have no idea. I just know that for my situation.
Yeah,
they just said they wouldn't cover it. I don't know. I don't know the exact details.
And like I was saying earlier, Trippy, half the doctors that I was going to that I needed to go to.
Well, there's an answer to that, but
hold on.
Go ahead.
Hold on. Half the doctors I was going to, including my regular medical doctor and my neurologist and everything else, they didn't take Obamacare. So I waited to go back to the doctor and suffered for a little while. If you remember, Daniel, I suffered for a while. And then finally, Lorianne got the insurance, and then everybody took me back, and it was fine and dandy. And like I said, I had a $750,000 brain surgery and I had to pay $1,500 out of pocket. I don't know I would
Wow.
have been that lucky with Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, mine was about
I don't know.
95.
95,000.
Yeah,
You
that
gotta
was
pay
yours,
it.
right?
Yeah, for my gallbladder removal and the time in the hospital and all that stuff. Yeah. And they covered $0.
See,
Do you pay $95,000?
I don't know what I paid. It probably just ran on my credit, and then I paid what I paid, and then the rest of it's probably sitting there somewhere, to be completely honest with you.
I feel you, because that's how I feel about hospital bills anyway.
Yeah.
well, so yeah,
I mean, you work out your payment plans with the hospital directly, and those are the options that you have usually.
Oh, I'm supposed to answer those calls when they call me? Yeah.
Usually, yeah.
No, that's not how it works.
When they start the call with "this call is an attempt to collect a debt," that's usually
That's usually what I tell
yeah.
them. I'm sorry, I do not hablo español, English. Go away.
Well, I don't know
I
about.
was Indian there.
I use the Affordable Care Act now. They cover a lot of our stuff, and
You don't have insurance through your job?
no,
I thought
Does
they
the
had great
Affordable Care Act
insurance where you
better?
work.
no, but we can't say where I work. But no,
I'm not. That's why I'm being nice. I said I thought they had
No.
great insurance where you work.
no, I think that I like the Affordable Care Act coverage better.
So
Well, and so
Affordable
this
Care
is my
Act.
point.
Go ahead, Daniel.
No, well, I mean, I think for me, this is my point, right? People will die on these hills. Not saying that you guys were, but it was a poignant topic of contention. And people will die on these hills around these topics. But we have 2 out of the 3 people who are in this Zoom. And some people might say this is an appropriate sample size, and maybe it's not, but it is a sample size.
No, it's
That
a good sample size.
Right? 2/3 of the people in this Zoom were negatively impacted by the Affordable Care Act. And so, does that represent the masses? I have absolutely no idea. But what that tells me is that is interesting enough for me to say, maybe I shouldn't throw out a person who was against it, because maybe he understands the numbers that I'm not getting to see. And those numbers demonstrate that maybe there's more Zach in my stories than people realize. And maybe it's not as big of a benefit. Not to say that for the people who it did benefit, F those people, right? Because that's not the case either. But I guess my point is, there's usually more to the story. You know what I mean? And just like I'm going to defend Kamala when they're out here giving her crap because of her ethnicity thing, I don't know enough about that to speak on that. And the reality is if she has a little bit more of an accent when she's over here versus other places, that's just basic human nature, right? You're going to try to vibe with the people that you're around. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't know that I call that pandering. But but I'm not going to mock that. Just like I don't think it's right to mock Donald Trump for putting down a program that has a huge track record for letting a lot of people down, even though it also has a track record for helping some people.
Well, like you said, it's 2 out of 3. But when the repeal and replace came, there was no replace, and everybody said that. What do you have in mind for the replace? And what do you have in mind now that this has taken shape and has been the country's policy for X amount of years? And there was a lot of people saying, when you repeal this, when this vote that actually failed, surprisingly, it passes, it's going to send hospitals and medical care for this country in a tailspin. And there was no accounting for that either. They were going full head on repealing the Affordable Care Act. And so, like you said, it didn't work for everybody, but I can tell you it's worked for people. So when you talk about the repeal and the replace, I think one of the things that scared off some senators was the fact that the amount of rallying you've seen all around the country about not just repealing it. About
Okay,
there was a lot of controversy and a lot of protests.
Did they come up with an idea of replacing?
No.
And you know, to the credit on that, or whatever you might want to call it, I think the whole system, forget about just the Affordable Health Care Act, I think healthcare, pharmaceutical in general, needs to be repealed and replaced.
It's broken. It's big time broken.
It is, but does either party have a solution?
No, because they're all getting paid.
But I'll tell you this: the party that got an A for effort was the Democratic Party on the topic of healthcare in America. Because you can look at the numbers, and I'm not going to give you specific numbers, but we've got a much higher rate of insured Americans. We've got a higher rate of we've eliminated the underinsured Americans because of new policies that don't allow crap policies to be sold to people.
But
So I don't know what
George,
happened. The reason I asked about what happened with your coverage not covering any of your gallbladder surgery, I don't understand why, because that was not supposed to be the case. You shouldn't be able to get insurance that would not pay for an emergency gallbladder surgery.
One would
That's
think.
huh?
well, but
One would
did
think.
you say the insurance? There's more Americans insured right now, correct?
There is. That's the numbers. Yeah.
But was it not because they forced us to be insured?
Oh no, they've repealed the penalty years ago.
I get that, but during your boy Obama's era,
Okay,
and that's
the
why
history-
that's the only reason why I got it, because we were forced to get it.
okay, you're right. Point well made. But after the penalty was repealed,
Sure.
and the idea of the penalty being repealed was a big part of getting the $1.5 trillion tax cut passed. It was called the Byrd Law. You couldn't pass a tax cut if it was going to drive the deficit up to a certain point. So they believed by repealing the penalty, a lot of people would have dropped out of the Affordable Care Act. They did not see that mass exodus. They actually seen an uptick in enrollment.
Well,
So still today, till today, the Affordable Care Act remains popular.
is
not
it
a
because
one-size-fits-all solution. No, it's not. And people got left out and people got hurt. But
Is
it
it
resolved
also-
a lot of the medical issues we have in America today.
is it also like most other social services being abused by those who can abuse it?
But
And
I
I
always
say
think
this,
that,
and I say this because I was familiar when I was in the auto industry with SSI. Okay. There are many people on SSI. There
Sounds like
are
a lot.
That's a lot. But there are only few, in my humble opinion, who deserve it. When you come into a car dealership and I'm the finance manager and I see you're on SSI, number one, it's a guaranteed deal because you get paid. I know you get paid, so your money's coming regardless. Okay. It's not like a job you can get fired from. Okay. But then when you dig a little deeper, because I'm a nosy SOB, I don't care. I'm going to ask the questions that kind of make people go, oh my gosh, why did he ask that? But when you have a lady sitting in your office and she makes $3,500 a month on SSI, and I said, oh my gosh, are you okay? You know, because $3,500, you should be not okay. And she goes, oh, it's for my children. I said, and I look over and she had 3 daughters and cute as a button. And I said, you get $3,500 for your children. I said, what's wrong with the kids? And she says, they got the ADHD. My parents should be millionaires because I'm freaking retarded. So they should be getting lots of money. My wife should be getting money from me. Come on, man. ADHD and you get $3,500 a month? Oh, dude, I had to do everything to keep my composure and not throw her out of my dealership because my boss would have been mad. But look, there are stories that I heard. People come in and they are disabled, Parkinson's, this, that, and the other. They cannot work. It's legit. That's legit. But when you take a broken system and take advantage of it like that, I feel that's why there's so many people who have insurance, because they're taking advantage of a broken system.
well, I always respond to that. What you just said is made. That point's made over and over again. There's a thing called personal welfare, whatever you want to call it, social programs, and I call it corporate welfare. You take the $1.5 trillion tax cut that got passed under the Trump presidency. The argument was that across the world, the tax base is around the tax cost, business tax cost is 15%. We want to reduce the tax cost to American corporations from 22% down to 15%. Everyone, accountants, the National Budget Office, the Federal Budget Office said, yeah, they're at a 22% rate, but when you factor in all the tax loopholes, they're at that 14%. With the $1.5 trillion tax cut, we heard of companies like Apple not paying any income tax. So my only point is when you're talking about abusing the Social Security system, we're also abusing the corporate tax system.
The most important, have you ever seen Dave Chappelle talk about Trump when he came out was speaking against, Hillary and him were debating, and she said, he doesn't pay his taxes.
Because I'm smart.
Exactly. And he says right there, a star was born because he came out and told the public what they do behind the curtain,
And
what the
they
Wizard
talked
of
about
Bills
the
is
polar
doing.
opposite when Mitt Romney was addressed in the debate, and he hemmed and hawed and he danced around the subject. No, Trump was smart to say that.
If I
He
was
was
a
Here's my
billionaire,
polar,
question.
I would find loopholes too.
So
right?
I'm
here's my
sure
question.
Daniel does because he's a billionaire.
Working on it. So here's my question, Trippy. So you mentioned one of your primary foundations behind supporting Democratic viewpoint or voting that direction is because they support or the disenfranchised. But when I ask you some examples, the only one you could point, you said they were trying to do some stuff, and you pointed to something that no longer is in existence. I guess my question is, if that is your primary reason for going that direction, do you not feel a little bit bothered that you don't have many more options that you could readily point to that support the reason you say you support that party?
Well, let me ask you this then. I always have reservations in my mind of what party I support. Always, every day, every single day. And one thing you said was people stand on their horses based on emotion. A little history about me: when I was a kid, I couldn't hardly read. Teacher said I'd never be able to read because I was so dyslexic. My dad taught me how to read. One of the things he'd do is take me to the library. And the funny thing was, I didn't see very good either. So I couldn't see the little index cards back then. So I couldn't really find a book via an index card. So all I did was gravitate to the corner of the library where there was newspapers hanging. And all I ever did was read newspapers. And I found all that stuff really interesting. Old newspapers, new newspapers, newspapers from other cities and states. So I am a person that researches a lot. And I still do that today. I'm like a current events walk. When I'm reading about current events. When I'm watching a lot of YouTubes, I'm watching politicians talk. So my reservation about both parties, but my concern isn't so much about I don't even know what kind of president Kamala Harris will be. I do know what kind of president Trump will be. I've seen it. And there's a lot of people that say this time it's not going to be a haphazard, willy-nilly. I'm going to bring my family in. I'm going to bring General Flynn in because he was supportive and he was dedicated to me. No, now I see a more structured approach to accomplish the things he really should have set out and accomplished in his first term. And it was Senator Graham that told Trump on a phone call, "You fucked up your presidency, no one else." He's not going to make the same mistakes. He's going to come with both guns drawn and go for the things he talked about initially. So, do I have my reservations about what kind of president Kamala Harris will be? Yeah, I have steep concerns about what kind of president Kamala Harris will be. But I'm almost positive what kind of president Trump will be. And I think that's what a lot of people are concerned about. Then came the uncertainty of, will Biden even be alive to be president? Will he even make it to election day? Then came this grandiose switch, and everybody's like, how did this happen? I've never seen Democrats rally around a candidate before like this ever before, because they're relieved that at least it's somebody that's showing some sense of level-headed, experienced approach to governing.
And you think that Kamala demonstrates that?
She's demonstrated it in her career, whether you agree with her decisions or not. She's demonstrated she understands sharing best practices of the other attorney generals is the way to do business. And she did it differently. She did it her own way. But whenever you brought anything to Trump, it was all about him. So he's not out to serve the people. He's out to serve himself.
So let me ask you this. When you hear people talk about Kamala blocking with everything in her power, a black man that was about to be executed for a crime he claimed he did not commit. There was evidence that could exonerate him. I think, I don't know, would you agree or disagree that if you are the final decision maker over a person about to be killed for a crime that there is strong potential proof that they maybe did not commit, is there a valuable reason to maybe hear that out before you end a person's life? I think most reasonable people would say, yeah, you should probably hear that out if you have the opportunity, right? But not only did she not say yes to that, she went out of her way to block it until it had to get forced to be seen. and then it was found that he was 100% innocent. The evidence was accurate, and she was going to let a person die because she cared about her record more than she cared about his life. And when you listen to her as a prosecutor, there are countless examples of her doing exactly that. Now, again, I couldn't cite all of these examples. I'm not going to pretend that I'm overwhelmingly versed, but these are multiple points and multiple cases that continue to get brought up as time passes. I guess my question to be is, if there is any merit to those things, in your opinion, is that an example of a person who demonstrates good judgment and executing good practices?
No, it's not a great example at all, but it is an example of how prosecutors work in America. And to the conservative point in me, there's a thing called the Innocence Project, which was funded, created, however you want to call it, by Barry Scheck, one of O.J. Simpson's attorneys, who I don't feel was innocent. Barry Scheck created the Innocence Project. It's a private sector initiative. It's an NGO. It's a non-government organization that takes these cases on because there are prosecutors that feel that, and the NRA says it every day about sensible gun control laws. If we give the liberals an inch, they'll take a foot, and then they'll take an arm, and then they'll take the whole everything. So when you got prosecutors that stand their ground and say, no, I'm not going to reopen this case, because you got to realize when it comes to an execution, there's a lot of reopening the case. There's a lot of revisiting every detail of the case.
But
Shouldn't there be, though?
Wouldn't his life be?
It absolutely should be. But when a prosecutor finally says, we need to shit or get off the pot, and I'm calling it, I'm not reopening this case. It's been through all sorts of scrutiny, and then the private sector NGO steps in and wins the case. Yeah, you could say the prosecutor did a crap job, but aren't we able to possibly say that about every prosecutor in America?
I mean, yeah, you could. And honestly, there may be merit to it, right? Because then you go into the argument where how many people did she incarcerate for years upon years of their life for nonviolent marijuana offenses, something that is legal now. Now, again, the question is, okay, was it a law that they were breaking at the time? The question for me isn't, is there legal reasoning to justify an action alone? I think that that is a question, but I think that you can look at, I'll give you a fantastic example. The Judge. Most of you guys, have you seen The Judge? That older white guy that everybody shares stories of, that people come before him and he listens to their situation. They got a traffic ticket.
The guy from Rhode Island.
Yeah, older judge. He ended up he ended up getting sick.
Yeah, I think he's Rhode Island or Massachusetts.
I haven't seen him, but I've heard of him.
Okay,
he's awesome.
So this guy's so this for me. Why is this guy so popular? Why did he trend? Because what he would do is he would take cases that were non-serious cases, and he would do this crazy thing, Trippy. He did this crazy thing where he would take into account the personal situation and circumstance that led up to it. And he would follow the letter of the law, but also take into consideration the intent, right? Which is an aspect of the law behind the circumstance. He would take the person, the entire situation, and he, as a judge, demonstrated compassion. So then I would have two questions. As a prosecutor, was Kamala Harris, now we can't speak to specific cases, so we can generalize here. Was Kamala Harris breaking the law by prosecuting where she could prosecute? Would you guys say yes or no?
No, you prosecute.
She prosecutes. She's not breaking the law.
Right.
Okay. Was this judge breaking the law by showing compassion where he could show compassion?
No, it's a judge.
But the crazy thing you're pointing out that this judge took the liberal point of view versus Kamala Harris, who took the conservative point of view.
No,
conservatives are holding it.
No, because you're caring about political parties. I could give a flying bird crap about that because that's a game. They're playing us. Here's my question. This is my point. Here's the point that I'm taking. My point is, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. And if you want to know a lot about a person's character, look how they treat people they have power over. who have absolutely no control to do anything about it. So if the argument is this judge and is Kamala Harris, are they both within their legal rights to act and make judgment based on the way that they did? Absolutely. But then the question is, why did they take two different, entirely different roads? And I would argue that for me is a demonstration of their character as a person. And what do they say? Character is how you treat people that can't do anything for you, how you treat people that you have power over. And what it looks like to me, the picture that is painted is that Kamala Harris could have showed compassion. Kamala Harris could have acted in a fashion that if she's a black woman who went to a historical black college university who wanted to endorse and support black men, she could have taken that opportunity and said, you know what? You're a black man who did an illegal thing, who broke a law, but rather than throwing the book at you, so I have a good reputation as a prosecutor. I want to focus on my record as a prosecutor. No, that's not what I'm focusing on. I'm focused on rehabilitating the black community. I'm focused on giving people chances when they grew up in environments that didn't give them those. She could have taken that route, but her record would have looked like crap. And what the picture is painting is that her record, her reputation meant more to her than the people she was impacting. What that tells me is that paints a picture of the type of person that doesn't care about the people she governs over. She cares about how she looks in the process. And if you're telling me that your motivation is caring about people and the party that looks after the disenfranchised, that tells me that she's anything but that person.
Well, as a prosecutor, if she was a tough prosecutor, you're in a tough position. You've got to make decisions. Now, I agree with you on that one case you're pointing out. Maybe she made the wrong decision. But as a prosecutor, we don't know her whole record. We don't know how many times she made the right decision. And we never will know whether, even if we had her record in front of us, we will never know if there were times, had she made a different decision, had she taken the route of compassion, if a person would have been released from prison and committed a heinous crime against a young person or a family member or a father or a mother or a daughter. So we've seen where that tide turns all over America. We've seen MAD. MAD was Mothers Against Drunk Driving. It's become the most effective lobbyist group ever to be known in history because they have two things that they work from. They work from love and they work from hate. And that's what drives them. They have two things that drive them, love and hate. So I can tell you this. Would you ever ask a mother that lost her child to a drunken driver to consider that driver's reason for being an alcoholic and a drunken driver that night? And would you ever respect a prosecutor that took that into consideration? And so then comes well.
No, go ahead. I didn't know if you wanted me to answer that. Go ahead, man.
No, go ahead and answer. Yes, I do. I'm sorry, I was going on and on.
No. You're good. So I don't know that it would be right for me to ask that question. But I can tell you that as a prosecutor, I would take that into consideration. Why? Because I think that this idea of doing something because you can, because the political world tells you that for me goes, I'm focused on a wrong thing. Like, at what point did humanity become secondary or tertiary or just this thing that we get to at some point? Well, technically yes, you're right. If this person has a track record and there is a chance that they're going to come out and do it again because they have no remorse. I know people in my life, people that I knew when I was growing up, who 100% should have been locked away because they had no intention of stopping. They were actually horrible human beings. I also know people who grew up in extremely tough circumstances and they were a victim of their circumstance. And the reason they kept perpetuating their circumstance is because they were never given an opportunity to do something different. Now, you could argue everybody has an opportunity, and that's right. That's right. But sometimes when every time you go to stand up, someone stands on your head, there is a point where you have a justifiable reasoning behind always being on the ground. Yes, it's your own responsibility. Yes, you should be able to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. But guess what? Sometimes people need help. I know that I've been in places in my life where I needed help. And in those circumstances, you know what a lot of people did? Mocked me, pointed fingers at me, put me down, and were not there for me. And you know what I had to do? I had to figure it out on my own. It would have been really helpful if there were people there to help me. And so my answer to you is, if I'm a prosecutor, I'm 100% taking that into consideration and using the capacity for rehabilitation as a aspect of my judgment. And I think that the absence of that is the reason there is such an absence in humanity in our society today. And I think we need to get back to actually caring about people over policies.
That
I agree. I think and my biggest thing that I'm going to throw at you is, and I don't want to get religious on you, but Daniel and I met through church. And our basis, and I believe the Christian basis, is that you take into consideration compassion. Okay. Would have Jesus made a great prosecutor? I think so. Actually, he is the great prosecutor, because when we go stand before the Almighty, he's going to be our lawyer, but he's also looks at our faults and says, this is what we need to do to tweak them. So let's get off of that.
Well, wait,
what bothers me though.
Wait, one question.
Go ahead.
When we get to the pearly gates, is Jesus going to be our lawyer or our prosecutor?
Both, because he stands on both sides. Because depending on where you stand is who he represents.
But what kind of prosecutor would he be?
He represents the Father, and if you don't go to the Father properly, you get 86th.
Okay, at some point he has to make that decision to 86 him. How much of your life does he take into consideration?
Everything, because he died for you.
So when he makes the decision to finally 86 you, and it's the final decision, this is Jesus Christ, the Lord Almighty, can we ever say he got it wrong?
No, because he'll follow the letter of the law to the T.
Did Kamala Harris follow the letter of the law?
I don't know.
We can't compare. I'm asking Daniel, do you think Kamala Harris followed the letter of the law when she finally said, we're done with this case? The book is closed.
Again, so this for me, I preface this at the very beginning. I don't know the full details of either one. I'm going to assume that she did for the sake of argument. But I think that there's one point you're leaving out, because I think you're making a good point. I just think that there is missing something, and it's grace. It's compassion. Because if there's anything that Jesus does operate under, if we're using that as an example, it is grace. He gave us all of the opportunities to make it right. If she didn't, then it's not a fair comparison.
No, there's no fair comparison with Jesus' decision against the human being's decision.
Sure. So then my question is, if we're using that even as the closest measure, then the question is, okay, fine. When he makes that final judgment, according to the example that you guys are using, he's given people every single chance to make it right. Kind of like the judge that I referenced in my previous example. My question is, did Kamala give anybody a chance to make it right?
But we don't know that.
We do with it when it comes to the marijuana charges, the nonviolent marijuana charges. According to what I have read, again with my asterisk, I have not done full research on this, so I can be proven wrong. From what I have read, she 100% threw the book at everybody. Period. That was her policy.
I can't argue it either. I don't know. I can tell you this, though. I could ask you this. If Donald Trump were a prosecutor, do you think he would have a similar record?
Probably,
yeah, absolutely. I would.
I agree.
So when you ask me how am I picking one or the other, and is it for my disdain for Donald Trump that I'm picking the other, I've made it so clear to everybody I know, I wish there were another choice. But right now,
Robert Kennedy.
He would not be my choice either. But who would have been my choice? Nikki Haley. I could list 10 people that would be my Republican choice for president. Granted, they're not running for president. I love John Roberts, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Extremely conservative. No one can tell me I'm a liberal if I say I love Chief Justice John Roberts. I even told Zach I would have given great consideration to voting for Ted Cruz if he ran for president, because he is the politician that considers everything, and he was a tough as nails judge.
Well, he's not only is conservative, but he's a constitutionalist.
Well, he doesn't even consider himself a Republican. He's so conservative. He considers himself a conservative.
Yeah.
So when people say, I know what kind of president Donald Trump would be. I have no idea what kind of president Kamala Harris will be.
I'm interested in that. See, this stuff really, really interests me. So let me ask you a question. Honest question. Do you think Donald Trump is racist?
No, no.
Okay.
But I don't
Back up.
think, but no. But then comes the age-old argument, the guy who's just a filthy pig around his friends and says, I'm not a sexist or I'm not a womanizer because I have a daughter. No, I don't think Donald Trump's a racist, but I do think it's disgusting when you hear him say the only thing that comes over from Mexico is rapists and murderers and drug dealers. And I say, that's
Here's the
not
thing. He never
true.
said that. He never said that.
He did in the campaign thump. I
Please
heard
send me
him.
the link. Send me the link. Send me the link. I will buy your lunch tomorrow if you can find me a
I will
link that
find it because I can find it on YouTube because it's been quoted
perfect.
so many times.
But that's
Perfect.
I want to see him say it, not some schmuck
No, no,
on
no.
YouTube.
No. You can find me the snippet, but I also here's the thing, right? And this is why I asked you about the racist thing, because I had, how do I say this? A family member. This was right at the beginning when he was first, like 2016, right? And I remember Donald Trump, right? You guys, I spent a lot of times, I'm in Zooms all day long, and most of the people are in their 20s. So it's hard to have adult conversation because they're all children. But so you guys have been around the block. You guys know Donald Trump was good in the streets. He was in all the rap videos. He was Donald Trump was liked by everybody of every ethnicity. There was zero situation where people were calling Donald Trump racist, right? And if you want to go to the five from New York City, I think that's a little bit of a different situation. However, which makes me agree with you when it comes to his beliefs as a prosecutor. I think he's very black and white when it comes to that. I guess no pun intended. But but when it came to just racism, will he work with black people? Will he interact with people of color? Does he have any weirdness around him? There was zero question whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I remember when this family member of mine, we were talking one night and they're like, yeah, he's racist. I'm like, and in my head, I'm like, Donald Trump's not racist. He's been in every rap video since I was a kid. What are you talking about? He is not racist, right? Because racist people, show me 5 KKK members in a rap video. Why aren't they? Because they don't like black people. It's a very simple set of math. We just, this weird, murky like definition of what racism is gotten really convoluted recently. And I think that goes into a conversation because I think there is a place for understanding what those lines are. But when he told me this family member about how Donald Trump's racist, my head was like, what? Because I remember, here's how this played out. As I mentioned beforehand, I look at everything from the outskirts. I was never a popular kid growing up. I remember getting bullied. And so when you're the kid that's getting bullied, it's you remember what it's like when the popular kids start making jokes. Because when the popular kids start making jokes, what happens? Everybody else starts making jokes, right? And so if you've ever been picked on in school, you know what it's like when someone who actually was friends with you yesterday is now making fun of you tomorrow. Why? It's not because you did anything wrong. It's because popular opinion decided this was the joke that we were doing, so everybody starts claiming the same joke, right? We've seen this. This is a real sociology. This is a thing that exists in human interaction. So when I'm watching Donald Trump, I'm watching sociology play out. I'm watching high school, elementary school, middle school all over again. I'm watching the guy come up, and all of a sudden you see the cool kids. And cool kids is the media, right? The media, why do I call them the cool kids? Because they have the loudest voice. In school, who has the loudest voice? The cool kids. And so I'm seeing the cool kids make jokes. Now everybody's making jokes with the cool kids. But I remember that it was just a joke. Everybody that's repeating the joke is starting to believe that it's actually true. And it was really interesting to me because I'm watching people take these little clips and I'm like, that's obviously a clip. But now are they really trying to spin this way? Like, he didn't say it like that. Granted, Donald Trump is not the most eloquent communicator.
Not at all.
And so he plays into this perfectly. He's like Christmas morning if you want to clip this guy up and make him look bad. So he does that to himself. And I get that. But when I'm looking at this, I'm like, you guys can't honestly believe. Like, this guy uses bombastic speech. Everything is the best or the greatest or the number one or the worst. So if you're not smart enough to deduce that he's not actually meaning that, but that's how he uses as a figure of speech for all of his language, then you're an idiot. You're just not being fair. But here we are, because the popular kid said it, all of the rest of the school was playing into it. So here's the question, at least to the racism thing. I remember this person. I'm watching this sociology experiment play out in real life, and I'm like, are people really gonna fall for this? This is legitimate propaganda and mass manipulation getting played out at scale from a guy that we know for a fact is not racist, and they're really selling this. I wonder if it's going to stick. A couple months later, I'm hearing his family member call him racist. And I was like, all right, let's do this. Because, like my point today, I said, I could be wrong. I don't know this guy. I know what I thought I knew about this dude, but I could be wrong. I will challenge you to something. I don't think he's racist. Let's take the next, however, I think couple days, week, whatever. And let's just find every possible thing. Find me everything you can on Donald Trump being racist. And I will try to do the same thing. And let's see. And I challenge this person to see if they would really be willing to stop believing what all the cool kids were saying and actually find out for himself. Well, unfortunately, he did not find out for himself. He did very limited research and then still walked away with the same opinion, which, to be clear, is what most humans do, which is why our political system is what it is in America. But I did do the research. And Trippy, I'm gonna tell you right now, man, I watched God knows how many hours of stupid videos. And when I found all the clips, I saw what everybody was saying. So it was really hard. It took me a long time to actually go and find the full edits. Like I'm having to look and then I have to search the name or search the date. It was actually hard to do. It took a long time. Fortunately, it was like 2016. So there wasn't as much stuff out there as there is now. We got 10 years of crap almost, right? So I went and I searched. And you want to know what I found? Here's what I found. 100% of the videos that I found when it came to Trump talking about Trump being racist, let me rephrase this. The great majority of the videos about Trump being racist had to do with Mexico and the wall. The great majority, not all of them, but the great majority of Trump being racist had to do with the wall. 100% of the videos that I found with him talking about the wall, here's what I found. One, immigration was actually the bottom of his reasoning. It was a reasoning, but it actually wasn't his primary reasoning. Immigration had very little to do with his desire for the wall. Do you know what his actual focus was?
No.
Human and drug trafficking. 100% of the time. Every single time you hear Donald Trump, at the time of the videos I found, 100% of the time when Donald Trump talked about a wall, he was talking about the need to stop human trafficking and drug trafficking. So here's Donald Trump. Everybody, in this situation, they're sending over their worst. They're sending over their worst. They're sending drugs. They're trafficking human beings. They're sending rapists. Well, guess what? When you use your brain for 5 seconds and factor in Donald Trump's communication type, I teach communication for a living. I have a course that teaches communication. So I'm a little bit versed on this topic.
You can promote it. Go ahead.
Nah, I mean, it's fine. It's for, if you want to learn about sales, reach out to me. This is what I teach. So I teach more than just sales. I teach about communication, right? And so when I look at Donald Trump's communication type, when I teach my students, when you're talking to a prospect on the phone, when you're going to communicate with them, one of the first things you want to do as quickly as possible is establish what their personality type is, establish what their profile and their communication type is. Why? Because if I'm talking to Zach, I know I got to use a little bit of excitement. I got to use a little bit more energy. I got to be a little bit more focused. When I'm talking to you, Trippy, I'm going to slow down a little bit. Right? I'm going to let you talk. I want to hear what you have to say because I know I need to listen to what's important to you because that's the only way you're going to respect my perspective because you want to be heard. Everybody wants to be heard, but Zach just wants to be heard differently. And because I've been doing this for a very long time, I know within a couple of seconds that I can read a person's personality type, their communication type, and that tells me how to listen to what they're saying. Any intelligent person who's watched Donald Trump knows his communication type. He uses bombastic speech. So is it a surprise? And I've been talking a lot. I'm going to ask a question, Trippy. Is it a surprise that a person who uses just bombastic speech, and when he explains everything, if he is trying to explain to the people in his audience that we need to stop the human trafficking problem, we need to stop the drug problem. This is going on at the highest level, meaning politicians and people in power are a part of this, and they're not sending good people. They're sending their worst. Is it a fair deduction that he is talking about all of Mexico and every Mexican, or is it possible that he's just talking about the human traffickers and the drug dealers?
Well, it Yes, it is possible, and he's not racist. But and like you said, he uses bombastic terms, which was their murder, drug dealers and
Drug dealers and rapists. But
right.
here's the thing. He was
Here's the
talking
thing.
about drug dealers and rapists in that time. He wasn't talking about all Mexicans.
No, but here's the thing that he didn't understand as president. The wall is a metaphor for border control. The wall will never be clear across Mexico. There are parts where you can't put a wall. There are parts where the wall has to be left open parts of the year just because of the inclement weather that the wall has to be left open. So the notion that he's saying a wall will stop human trafficking without any other taking into consideration the reason the human trafficking is going on, the reason the drug trade is going on, the reason that women and children who don't sell drugs or traffic want to come over here is because we're the reason for the human traffic. We're the reason for the drug trade. We're the reason.
He said repeatedly, and he blamed American politicians for it. When he was talking
Americans
about he was talking about them.
Right. And Americans have
and I believe that's why they went after him so hardcore, because he was letting everybody know that he knew that the bad guys were the elite.
He said this. He said, and here's the thing, and this is why I really like to break this down. And people don't have to agree with me, but I just, in this particular context, I spent a lot of time. And when I'm listening to him, here's what I'm hearing. I'm saying everybody's hearing him say Mexico is sending as a bunch of rapists and drug dealers. The news is parroting. Donald Trump thinks Mexicans are rapists and drug dealers, and that's why he's anti-immigration. Imagine being a journalist trying to convince everybody that Donald Trump believes, right? Let's remove political motivations for a second. If you knew that somebody was manipulating, let's say Trippy, you were Donald Trump in this example. I apologize for a comparison I'm sure you're not fond of. Let's say you're running for president, right? Let's remove his name from the situation. Imagine you're running for president and you happen to have access to information that, guess what? These billionaires in the boys club, they're trafficking in little children. They're doing weird stuff on the weekends. And I know these people, and I'm going to do something to stop it. And I know that one of the best ways to stop it is to shut those. It's not going to do everything, but we need to put something to block those things from happening. Just so we're clear, to talk about Donald Trump for a second, so you know how serious he was about this. Do you remember what Ivanka Trump, one of her first things that she started in place? Once President Trump got it, she started a human trafficking program. That's how serious this family was against stopping human trafficking. You like to do research? I would encourage you to do some research on why were the Trumps so big on this human trafficking topic. Fun fact, within years of them being out, Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, all of these big names, Jeffrey Epstein, start getting outed. Is that a coincidence that many of the big names in the human trafficking come out within a couple of years of some dude coming into office, making one of his primary initiatives was, I'm going to build a wall because I want to stop human trafficking and I want to stop drugs coming in from our southern border, which, to be clear, if you follow the CIA's plans from the 70s and the 80s in the inner city and the war on crime and all of that stuff, that was a government operation to entrap and incarcerate people of color.
Well, that came out of Nixon's middle-level administrator who made that admission. But here's the thing, because you made a couple of points. Trump is not a victim of defamation of character. He entered into the business of politics, where defamation of character is very much a part of that business. What happened?
That doesn't make you less of a victim. It just means you should be aware that you're about to be one.
Well, apparently, he was never made aware of it, and he didn't. And then again, he didn't do anything to adjust his behavior.
That he did not.
So
you are 1,000% correct. He didn't adjust the damn thing.
So no one's going to adjust the attacks. No one's going to adjust what they do best if he's not going to adjust what he does worse.
Fair enough. If you're playing that game, fair enough.
It
But
is the game in place. But
it
here's
is.
the thing. He did it at times when it wasn't even for a valid goal. He was mad at
Rosie O'Donnell is a great example, right? Attacking
Rosie
somebody because he's
O'Donnell,
petty. That's
John
a
McCain,
fantastic example.
John
Yep.
McCain. But there was also Khizr Khan, who was a Muslim soldier in Iraq, who was basically just for basic novice point of view or example, was doing a routine police traffic stop on a car that was suspicious wanting to come through a checkpoint. Khizr Khan volunteered to interview the people in the car because he spoke Muslim. The people in the car knew they were no longer getting through that checkpoint because Khizr Khan knew they were going to blow themselves up. So they chose to blow themselves up and just take Khizr Khan with them. And Trump berated the mom and the dad ridiculously. And the dad came out very eloquently and asked him to stop. And Trump then berated the mom for not having a point of view. In the Muslim faith, the mom isn't allowed to have a point of view. Isn't allowed to speak publicly. It's then like in your podcast today, isn't even allowed to handshake with a strange man. But Trump continued to do that to that family.
Sure.
Continued. And will probably again at some point during this campaign.
He may, right?
And that makes him inappropriate or what were they saying? Not competent to be president.
No, that's not accurate at all. Those two things. One does
That's
not
just
equal the
a
other.
sick point of view that he did it over and over again to a family that lost their child.
But the implication that because you don't like a way a person handles a thing, that makes them unfit to be president.
There was nothing to handle. There was nothing to handle. He just berated this family at random.
So here's my question to you, because to be clear, I'm not here to champion defense for Donald Trump. I don't think he needs me for that, right? Because he's done plenty of things that I could understand why somebody would be nauseated by the way he communicates. I don't have a problem with it. I don't think most New Yorkers who speak like that, they understand that. Now, a lot of New Yorkers don't like Donald Trump. I'm not saying they assume they agree, but the reality is he has a personality type. He has a communication type, and that type exists. Now, if you want to use your disdain for that type as the equivalent to, well, because I don't like his personality, he's not fit to lead. That's a stretch. That's just not even.
No, the thing I feel he's not fit to lead is because when he led, he wasn't a leader. There was
how long were we trying to end the war? The whole peace of the Middle East. How long were we trying to fix that? And
he got there.
With the exception of we won't even talk about how that final part was in Afghanistan. ISIS was the biggest name in terrorism for decades. Never heard about ISIS again. Once
right.
Trump,
and you want to know why? Because General Mattis said, here's what we're going to do. ISIS was in Syria. It's called a caliphate. They took over a country and they made it the terrorist base. And General Mattis made it clear, we're going to encircle them. We're not going to imprison them. We're going to kill them. And so today, Trump talks General Mattis is incompetent. We know why? Because General Mattis says he's incompetent. So as far as a president, people on his staff, General Mattis, General Kelly, and John, now I forget his name. He was his national security advisor. John Bolton. 3 top tier national security people. Probably realistically, John Bolton is the biggest top tier national security person. All say he does not have the competence to be president. He does not have the temperament to be president. That's a concern of mine. General Kelly's son died in Afghanistan. General Mattis was the general that led our forces into Lebanon. He fucked up and 218 Marines died in the barracks. But he's been a dedicated Marine general for many, many years. John Bolton has a national security lobbyist group that's known to be one of the best in the world. 3 top tier Trump staffers, and there's more, but but I'm only going with the highest ranking, the highest pedicure, all saying he is not fit to be president. John Bolton has gone so far as to say Kim Jong-un and Putin are both nipping at the bit, waiting for him to take back the White House so they can take advantage of him. So when people
The problem is neither one of them moved while he was in office. They didn't. They waited.
Oh,
until
they both Mattis stepped down. Kelly,
No,
No,
I'm talking about Putin and Kim Jong Un. Neither one of them did.
Oh, he froze.
Got in there.
Kim Jong-un returned Otto Warmbier to America. Otto Warmbier was a college student that was staying in a North Korean tourist-sponsored hotel. He tore down a banner in the floor of the hotel that was only designated for employees, and he gave it to a fellow lodger as a gift. That was his crime. He was returned to America. His father said it looked like they had taken his teeth out with pliers. They called it wakeful something. It was comatose state. All he could do is scream, and then he died 3 days later. And Donald Trump, the guy that said, I told Kim Jong-un my big red button's bigger than yours, didn't do a thing other than land Air Force One onto the TMZ and salute a North Korean general.
We proved that wrong, Trippy. He didn't salute him. He shook his hand, and you admitted it. Come on.
He shook his hand. You're right.
What are you supposed to do? Show up and
you shouldn't have showed up in North Korea in the first place.
Why not?
Absolutely.
Why not?
You want him
because when you return a college student, the only thing that should show up is Air Force carriers.
So let me ask you an honest question, Trippy. If you're a world
research
leader,
on, all right, go ahead, Dan.
and you're responsible, you're the leader of the United States, and you're responsible for keeping countries like North Korea and Russia in check. You think you're going to do that by ignoring them, or engaging with them and having a dialogue that comes with a plan? This is a basic leadership question. Forget
real life example when Libya bombed a discotheque in Italy and killed American soldiers because he knew that discotheque in Italy was frequented by American soldiers. The response Ronald Reagan took was fly Air Force jets, took out his mansion, took out his headquarters, and unfortunately killed his very young daughter.
What country?
That's the same response North Korea had coming for killing.
What country? What country did the bombing?
Libya.
Was that?
And how dangerous was Libya as compared to North Korea?
It doesn't.
It 100% matters. It 100% matters.
Then we should have been more aggressive. Then you don't just send over. Then you don't just send over air. Then you don't just send over Air Force jets that are.
So you think? Here's what's funny.
Send over aircraft carriers that will take North Korea out once and for all.
He's
the one that said it.
Oh. You want him to go blow up?
He's the one that said
North Korea?
We've had numerous presidents. We've had numerous presidents talk about North Korea. I'm going to take care of the job once and for all.
Okay. And he went over and he talked to him and he kept pajama pants in line. But you just said he should have went over and he should have just wiped out North Korea.
We're getting to that point.
Well, that would have killed a lot of innocent women and children. But hold on. I want Gaza wiped out, but I'm the bad guy.
No.
This
is 9 months we're on Gaza. Air Force carriers for 3 days, sending in jets one after the other, taking out North Koreans' military bases is not the same. It's entirely different because let me tell you a few of the differences. Gaza is 6 miles by 26 mile strip of land. It's one of the most densely populated areas in the world. Right. Israel has now verifiably dropped 2,000-pound bombs, 500 of them. On that area. It not only decimates everything in the area, it destroys the infrastructure and leaves it for many, many years to be refurbished. It takes years to refurbish the infrastructure after one 2,000-pound bomb is dropped on a populated area like that. They've dropped 500 now.
Okay.
They've berated Biden for not shipping them the weapons they've asked for, and the only thing Biden has cut off is those 2,000-pound bombs.
But here's the big
entirely
difference.
different.
We know where North Korea's bases are. The problem with the Gaza Strip is they're
dropping a 2,000-pound bomb on an area where one Hamas soldier is directing traffic, deliberately asking everybody in the area is dying because of that one.
I don't think they're doing that. And but regardless,
it's exactly what's happening.
Regardless, as I said, they should make it a parking lot and build a Walmart there, and we'll be fine.
Here's my point, though. Here's what's funny to me, right? First of all, Trippy, let me tell you this, man. Huge respect to you, bro, because you actually have valid reasonings behind the decisions that you've made. Like most of the people who bash Trump just repeat talking points. You've actually talked about actual situations that I believe have logical merit. Now, this is just my opinion. Do with that what you will. However,
I appreciate that. Zach's going to tell me I'm a total idiot.
Well, he gets all his info from Joy Behar, so it's okay.
See, it didn't only take less than a minute. It took 4 seconds.
Now, here's the thing, right? Like, I do believe that, one, everything sounds good until it's vetted against an alternative perspective. Two, I say the great majority of the stuff that you're complaining about with Trump are not leadership issues. They're not results issues. They're personality issues. And I think that at some point we got to be adults and just be like, grow up. You just because you don't like somebody's personality doesn't mean they can't do the job. Here's what's funny to me, though, especially because you said he should have just blown up North Korea. The biggest complaint, well, top 5 complaints that they had about Trump, maybe top 10. Trump's going to start World War III. Trump's going to start World War III. Trump's going to start World War III. Okay, here's what we know. Best economy in a long time, but that wasn't Trump. That was Obama. Okay, cool. Trump had nothing to do with the economy being fantastic.
I have another point on that, but
right?
I'm not now.
So that wasn't him. COVID, I think that is that cannot be mentioned in the same breath because it's just such its own individual thing. So I'll leave that off the table for now.
Well, the economy is its own individual thing too.
It is. But I think that just it affected so many things in so many different ways. But the reduction of conflict in Trump's presidency is greater than arguably any president that definitely in my lifetime.
Absolutely.
And the president that we thought was going to replace us and save us from all the mess that Trump created
never said
it has us closer to World War III than we've ever been, ever. And so then my question for the people who continue to espouse this thing, if you can get past your dislike for his personality, which I get, I understand, I get it. He says stupid things a lot. Cool. But if we table that for a minute, as a leader, if our goal is to stay away from war, put the world in check, and put this country on a stronger footing for success, and you remove his personality from it, I have a really hard time seeing how anybody thinks this administration has done a better job than the last one. If you want to play it's the previous administration's fault for all that stuff.
I don't know.
But the point that I'm making is people keep saying he's a threat. Well, how did
I've never said that.
You definitely said that you thought he was unsafe to lead the country, that he was.
According to 3 of his employees, top tier, top pedicure.
Yet he resolved more conflict than any president in any recent history.
But
he brought peace in the Middle East to a larger degree than we've seen in multiple presidents. We won't even talk about what happened under, Hillary and Obama, right? There's movies made about how miserable that was handled. But this guy, to your point, who was said by multiple leaders, he's doing a horrible job, managed to squeak out one of the best job of any presidency when it comes to resolving and reducing conflict on our planet than anybody in existence. So if he's that bad, how did he do such a good job?
Well, I can tell you what'll be different that I do like about Kamala Harris, and it's the one policy thing she's mentioned, is she's made it clear to Netanyahu she's just not going to sit back and allow them to slaughter millions and millions of Palestinians. She's just not going to allow it. And Trump has made it clear. He put the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, which was a matter of door signage, frankly. I mean, all it was Staples changing it from being a consulate to an embassy.
You realize that it's also a matter for you guys. I bring this up because you guys brought it up. It's also a matter of fulfillment of biblical prophecy, right? Like it's just it's far bigger than just policy.
Right, but biblical prophecy cannot mean dropping 2,000-pound bombs on human beings.
I don't know if any one of us are qualified to determine what biblical prophecy should encapsulate.
I don't know, but
I'm not for sure. If you are, maybe you are.
No, I'm not. But I know that innocent women and children are dying every day.
Did Trump do that when he established Jerusalem as the capital? Or did that happen under this administration, the one that you're saying is doing a better job?
Trump catered to Israel 100%. If he
but
were
there was
president
no
now, he's made it clear.
2,000-pound bombs.
But every president
he
pretty
made it
much
clear
is catered to Israel because they're our number one supporters.
What happened?
I said every president has catered to Israel besides
100%.
Biden and Obama because Israel is our number one ally.
No, it's because they take advantage of that relationship.
But neither here nor there. Trump catered to Israel. And he was able to do something that no one else to be clear, every president before him promised to do and did not fulfill. He was the only one to fulfill the promise of establishing Jerusalem as the capital. Only one. 100% of them promised it, right? He's the only one that enacted that policy. Yeah, the embassy. That's what I mean. But here's the thing.
Capital embassy,
he did not drop that 2,000-pound bomb. None of those bombs got dropped when he was in office. He was able to do it without the bombs. And the administration you're saying is doing a better job is the administration under which these bombs took place.
No, there was an attack on Israel on October 6th. We're at 9 months later. We're talking now 9 months later.
Who's the president?
Okay. But Trump has made it clear he will support Israel 100%.
But you're focusing on the hypothetical and you're ignoring the obvious, which is the fact that this problem started under the administration and the leaders of the administration, which includes Kamala Harris, that you're saying they're going to do a better job.
They could be just as guilty as him. I'm not disagreeing with that. What I am saying is from the talking points, Kamala Harris made it clear to Netanyahu, I'm not going to continue this course.
But if Netanyahu doesn't respect her, then who cares?
Okay. I care
here's the thing. If
she passes presidential policy that cuts off support to Israel, they will do what she asks.
Is she not the vice president right now?
She's not the president, though.
No, but she's the vice president. Her and
President Biden don't share the same opinion. I've never heard Biden say what she said.
Yeah, because Biden, from what I've heard, Biden's actually pro-Israel.
Let me ask you a question, honest question. Do you think that she's saying this because this is what she really believes? Or you think that she's saying this because her base is going to be the most likely to react to something like that and it would encourage them to vote for her?
I do think that. And she'll be held to it as president.
And then when she doesn't do it, what happens? We continue to...
But we know what Trump will do and not do because I knew him as president.
Correct. And as he was president, there was no bombs being dropped on Israel, around Israel.
Well, we don't.
And let's bring your favorite thing up. When he was president, Putin was kept in line. There was no attacks on the Ukraine.
And this is the thing. You're using.
They attacked Crimea on Bush's watch.
But so what are you talking? But that has nothing to do with it. Here's my point, man. Here's my point. I don't need you to agree with me, brother, because who knows? All of us are speculating. To be clear, to a large degree, we're pontificating. That's what we're doing. We're speculating. None of us really know. We can just use our own deductive reasoning to put out our perspective on the topic. And so you can throw my opinion in the garbage just like anybody else's, right? You guys are all adults. Anybody who's watching this thing is an adult. Y'all can do what you want. But here's the thing that I'm catching here, and I'm just trying to build a profile about this conversation. What I'm noticing is you are putting real fear and concern into hypotheticals surrounding Donald Trump while simultaneously ignoring the real effects of the campaign, which includes a leader that you're supporting. Here's a fact. This is not an opinion. The fact remains that you said you're concerned about how these wars will play out. The fact remains we know how it played out under an administration where Kamala Harris had at least some degree of power. War, a miserable war, where horrible things are taking place. Under Donald Trump, the one you're saying is going to do a horrible job. You can believe he's going to do a horrible job. You can think he's going to do a horrible job. And you said you have proof. Here's the proof you have.
No, I never said I have proof. I have a strong feeling he's going to do a horrible job.
You also, cool. But you also have proof. It didn't happen under him.
Oh, right.
While he was in office, it did not happen. While the people you're supporting, it did happen. And yet here you are believing that the guy who had no bombs being dropped is going to make it worse. And the people who are responsible for being in charge of this country when the bombs were dropped are going to make it better. And that makes it honest question, Trippy. Honest question, bro. Forget politics. Forget left and right. Can you honestly tell me you don't see a little hole in that logic?
Oh, there's a big hole in everything in politics. But I know what kind of president Trump will be.
You don't.
Well,
You
the kind
don't
he
know. You're
was had
speculating.
no conflicts. He reduced conflict more than any president in recent history. Why are you not giving him credit for that?
I do give him credit for that.
Why
Then
don't
why
you
do you
also
think
That
he
was a
give him,
wouldn't do
great
it again?
thing.
give
But
him
Why do you
credit
think
for
he wouldn't do it
Lois?
again?
he's walking in to a disaster. Okay, this is why. I'm answering your question. Okay, he's walking into the situation. It's happening. Why do I think it won't be controlled under his watch? Why I think it is because of what I said maybe 5-10 minutes ago.
Because of his
People
staff.
I named that believe he cannot control the situation.
You mean the three that he fired because they didn't agree with him because
Whatever he
they wanted to
did,
do their
he didn't
job.
fire
They wanted to
them
do whatever
until-
they wanted to do. They wouldn't
He
listen to
didn't
him.
fire them until after he hired them, and they were already 20-year vetted generals. Extremely
And then they wanted to
promoted.
do whatever they wanted to do and wouldn't listen to him, and that's why he got rid of them.
I doubt that's the case.
I'm pretty
But
sure
do you
that is
know?
the case.
Do you? But
I've never
so here's
been
the
in the
thing:
war room.
neither one of us know, right? So that's
We've
why
never
I
been
was
in the war
there. I was there.
if you guys notice, here's the thing: if you
Never
guys
been in the
notice,
situation room.
if you guys notice, I'm only pointing to stuff that we can know. And the stuff that we don't know, I'm allowing to be put as speculation. Here's the reality. It could be that Trump is a shit leader, and that's why all of those people got mad at him. It also could be that those people were used to operating in a government where they could get away with stuff, and they weren't used to operating with a dude who made decisions. And as a result, what Zach's saying is right. Here's the thing. What you're saying makes sense to me, Trippy, because a lot of people don't like Trump. So it's possible they don't like him, so they're going to talk crap. But what Zach's saying also makes sense because Zach has a history from his TV show and everything else. You either get in line or you're moved out of the line. And if these people didn't do their job properly, you're fired. Well, what do you do when you get fired? If you're a petty person in politics, you're going to talk crap about your old boss. If you're an employee and anywhere on the planet, most people talk crap about their old boss. So for me to hear that you talk crap about your old boss, that doesn't mean that everything you're saying is necessarily accurate. That just means you're mad because you got fired. Do I know what's true? To y'all's both point, we don't really know. You know what we do know? Is that even if what you're saying is true, Trippy, and he was just a horrible person that was unfit for leadership, that horrible, unfit person managed to reduce conflict more than any leader in American history that we can remember. So why is that not being accounted for? And if what Zach's
Being
saying
accounted
is true, how? Because you haven't brought it up.
I agree. He reduced conflict more than any other leader.
But you don't carry that same confidence that he could do that again?
Nope.
But you think the people who were responsible, who the conflict started on their watch,
I
believe
think
they can fix it next time?
No. What I believe is if he were elected to a second term, win or lose, stole the election, whatever, if he were president, these conflicts would have occurred anyway. And he would not have been able to control the situation.
Maybe
We don't have control of the situation.
We don't know until we know.
We don't have control of the situation. People argue if Trump were president, Ukraine wouldn't have got $130 billion in weapons. But do we really know that Russia wouldn't have invaded Ukraine if Trump were president? Do we really know?
I believe
not have attacked.
This is again my speculation to use Daniel's word. I believe that he had a relationship, not a friendship, not a homie. I think him and Putin had a respectable relationship as leaders, and I don't think Putin would have crossed that line. Putin has no respect for Biden. 100%. I've watched him talk about it, and he had respect for Trump. Maybe because he was scared because he thinks this guy's just as freaking nuts as I am. Who knows? I don't know. But he knows that, and Kim Jong-un knows that Biden is not in power. He's got mashed potatoes in his head. And Kamala is going to probably do a worse job. So they're chomping at the bit for them to let them win. Why not?
Well, like I said, I'm not basing that on my opinion. I'm basing that on only John Bolton said it.
But I don't care what he said because he got fired. So if me and you worked together, I was the boss, and you pissed me off because you did something wrong and I fired you, you're going to talk smack about me. Do you think everybody's going to believe it?
No.
Stop it. You already talked smack about me and I ain't never fired you.
Here's the thing. And this is the point. This is what I think is funny. And this is where I think human emotion, again, let's talk about sales. People say, "Oh, I'm not an emotional decision maker. I'm a logical decision maker. I make decisions based on logic."
That's baloney.
100% of people make decisions based on emotion.
100%.
Logical people just use logic to justify their emotions. Period.
Unless you're a robot, that's the only way you're making logical.
And so,
decisions.
correct. And because of that, it's my experience and my belief that if we really want to understand what's happening here, we have to be willing to constantly and intentionally check our emotions at the door and say, I'm about to hear some stuff that's going to make me feel a certain kind of way, but I need to listen to this without a filter. And what's the filter? The filter is what the news tells us and what our friends tell us and what our coworkers tell us. We got to get that filter out the way and just say, let me listen to this objectively. That's why when everybody kept telling me Trump was racist, that didn't match, because the filter.
I've never thought he was racist.
I know, but you also believed that he said that everybody that Mexico was sending their worst without the context of he was referring to actual bad people. Right? And so that changes things. And if that happens once, and that was the only time, insignificant. But if it can happen once and then it happened multiple times, then what we know psychologically is that there is now a tainted picture of a person that, unfortunately, his own actions support the tainted picture. And so as a result, we're viewing someone through an unfair lens. And for me, that's fine. But if I'm only letting filters allow me to make my judgments, then I'm not seeing things clearly. Period. There is no equivocating that. If I am letting filters cloud my judgment, I am making judgments without seeing things clearly.
But
the only way to see things clearly is you have to stop allowing other people's perspectives to skew your information. So what you would have to do is look at this and say, all right, let me weigh this out here. What's an opinion? An opinion is that he fired those people because they were trash. Another opinion is that he fired them, we don't know why, because he didn't like them and they weren't doing whatever he said and they actually knew the truth that he's a horrible person. Okay, one of those sounds more logical to me, but in either situation, it's still speculation. I don't know. So if I'm going to use my ability to judge how he's going to rule in a future presidency, I can't use those metrics because those metrics are skewed by information I can't confirm. So that means I have to remove that from my list. So if I'm going to be responsible, now most people won't do this. I'm going to say 99% of people won't do this. I do this, but I'm a freaking weirdo, right? But most people won't do this. So I'm going to say, all right, cool. What are the things I know for a fact that I can use? Trump will mess up his presidency. He's going to make war worse. No, let me challenge that better. How will Trump handle global conflict if he's president again? All the reasons why not. Okay, well, there's a lot you're going to know, but here's what we do know. Conflict didn't increase. Conflict didn't stay flat. Conflict that had been in place for 20 years resolved, decreased, minimized.
You say that about Biden, too. I mean, he ended the war in Afghanistan. He brought
Trippy, you going to tell me that was a successful transaction,
he
sir?
Bullshit on a bullshit war.
He gave away $80 billion to terrorists.
And you know, the Department of Defense just
We've argued this 100 times, Dan.
The Department of Defense just said it was $7 billion worth of equipment left.
Okay. $7 billion of war equipment is totally acceptable because it's not $80.
They took the computer chips out of the helicopters. The Taliban is not using any of the weaponry.
Let me let you in a little secret. I don't know if you saw China parading the other day. They had a military parade and our missiles were on their trucks that they took from Afghanistan.
Could probably be not even anything they could fire.
Are you a military professional?
I'm not a military professional. But I do know for a fact the helicopters that were left behind, there was a Taliban pilot that flew it and went in big circles and then crashed because we took the operating chips out.
There was a Taliban. I mean, look who you're talking about. He rides camels.
Trippy, I appreciate
the
you.
The war had to end.
Dude,
had to end.
Dude, stop it right now because you have said a lot of intelligent stuff tonight. I'm not about to let you just come out with saying that and act like it matches.
How would you? Okay, so let me ask you this: if you were in business for 20 years and you got nowhere, how would you end it? Because we were in Afghanistan for 20 years.
Okay, you know what I'm not going to do? is I'm not going to give the terrorist organizations trying to murder everyone $7 billion worth of murder equipment.
When
And
we
then
left Iraq,
tell stupid ass Americans, I took the chips out.
when we
That's
left
like saying,
Iraq,
I took the batteries out, guys.
you know when we left Iraq, we left the equipment behind.
Okay. I
And
don't know
Obama,
anything.
and
Hey,
Obama had to
Daniel, I
hire.
forgot that.
Are you talking about? Yes, that's exactly my point. That's exactly my point. And you know what happened? Those weapons were used to murder American soldiers.
No, those weapons were. There was a contract given to a company to melt them down.
I'm not 100% sure on that one. Daniel, were you in the sandbox?
I was near the sandbox. I was outside. I was in the Navy, so I was
I know.
outside of the sandbox. When I was out there, the biggest issue was Bahrain.
My cousin was on the Wisconsin, and he was they were the first ship to start bombing Baghdad.
Nice. Yeah, we
Yeah.
were out there for all that. We were out there before 9/11. There was a
Oh yeah, you were pre 9/11. He was post.
yeah. I was not I'm talking about like
no,
a
no,
couple
no, no.
months.
Maybe
I was
he
I'm
was-
talking I was a couple months before 9/11. Like
Maybe he
you
was.
guys remember what was the there was a ship that was bombed. Side of a boat pulled up
Yeah,
next
in Beirut or wherever.
Beirut.
yeah,
not
that
Beirut.
was
There's
that,
no water in
that was
Beirut.
it wasn't Beirut. I forget where it was.
It's
It was a
Beirut or
little-
something.
that was my battle group. I was out there. Like that was
Really?
that was
Yeah.
yeah.
I forget the name
So-
of the ship.
So
I mean,
but here's the thing, man. Trippy, bro, you said a lot of intelligent stuff tonight that I can't refute. That one, no, sir, no way whatsoever. They're telling you that it wasn't 80, it was 7 billion. Like that makes it better. And here's the thing: people who don't want to think for themselves will accept that answer. They're telling you they
Where do
removed
you
the
draw
chips.
the line? Is my question. That's not. Call it 80 billion.
call it
7 billion.
1 billion.
Okay, call
There
it
should
1
be
billion.
0
Where
billion.
do you
There should
draw
be-
the line?
That stuff should have either been destroyed completely.
It should have been
not
taken
taking a
out.
chip out. That's
But
nonsense. You
This
can get a
is a
chip from
different-
China.
it's- I'm
Okay,
gonna avoid.
if it wasn't the greatest decision in the world, was it okay? First of all, take into consideration this: Trump signed a peace agreement with the Taliban that tied Biden to that timeline. That was Trump's peace agreement.
Do you
The
know?
timeline was set in that peace agreement. A
Have
peace
you watched the video
agreement
with
is
the
a
Secret
contractual
Service guy?
agreement. Huh?
Have you watched the video with the Secret Service guy who was in that meeting? And
That was yeah.
he said the
yeah.
greatest thing he ever heard was when Trump said not one American will be harmed when they're leaving, and then showed him a picture of his family and his house and said, I know where you live, and then got up and walked out of the room.
Okay, but Trump was no longer president.
Yeah, well, that's why they gave everything
Then-
away. And he gives all the money away to
we
Ukraine.
were
so,
we
I
were
mean,
bound
he's
to a
winning.
timeline.
Okay.
We were bound to a timeline.
If
So
let me
that's
tell you
it.
what, if you want to go with Joe's record as positive and a winning, he's the best president for
No,
giving away
let's-
money.
Let's use your example. I think you're using an actual fantastic example, right? Because that's a fair question. Zach puts forth the scenario where the Secret Service who was in there, Trump has told the story himself. The story has been told. He shows that leader his picture of his house. No one dies. Guess what? Nobody died. For how long? Nobody died. And then you said, but Trump was no longer president. That's exactly correct.
But we had to
And you-
fulfill the timeline.
Correct. So this is so let's say we're watching the Super Bowl and the quarterback sets a play in motion. And that play requires let's say it's a particular play and he's got to hand that thing off to the running back. Right? The quarterback does his part and the running back fumbles the ball. Is it the quarterback's fault or the running back's fault?
It's team effort.
No, that's the running back's fault.
But if we had it's the running back's fault.
Did
If
you
the- if-
hold on? Let me just help you with your analogy real quick. Did you play football?
I played it as a kid. not
Okay,
as a kid.
so one of the things when you get into varsity, when you're a running back, one of the things they teach you to do, you walk around with the football at all times, and it was our job. Didn't matter where we were in school, whatever. If I saw someone walking down the hall with the ball, I was to hammer it and try to get out of his hands, and then he had to run laps because you were taught never to drop the ball because it's your fault. If you drop the ball, unless you're unconscious, that's a whole different ball game. But if you drop the ball because you got brick hands, butterfingers, or whatever, it's nobody else's fault but yours.
And so Trippy, what you're saying right now is, oh well, it was he handed the ball off and Biden fumbled it, so it's the quarterback's fault. That's what
No.
you're saying.
how? Okay, I'm asking. I'm not saying. Let me not say anything. Let me ask a question. After 20 years, you have a restaurant. It's a beautiful place. The only thing you can do is leave town. You can't pay the rent no more. You can't cook. You can't get the suppliers to bring you food no more. The community's not visiting your restaurant. How do you leave? You don't have a way of packing up all the tables. You don't have nowhere to. You can't get them. Was there a way to even leave with the equipment? Is my question. Do we really know that?
Here's the thing. No, we don't. And this is my point. You're comfortable pointing to things we don't know as negatives for Trump while simultaneously
But
overseeing
you want to
overlooking
end the
what we do know.
war.
Here's what we do know. How much did he successfully reduce or resolve during his time? A lot. So the argument could state, and justifiably, that had Trump been in office,
The second
he
term, we
would
would
have
have pulled out
seen
of
that through.
Afghanistan.
He would have done it, leaving 0 weapons behind. Because guess what? The same people he threatened that stopped killing people when he was in office were no longer scared when he was gone. And that's part of the reason, I would say, you could argue that there was such a rush to get out, because there was no longer any fear of reprisal, because the leader that was running the ball didn't have that same impact in global affairs. They weren't scared of what would happen because they knew he wasn't going to do anything. Now, this is going out of, are we believing that there was a political plan to do this? Because I personally believe that there are people in our government that are trying to arm those people for future plans. That's exactly what happened in Benghazi. And I believe that Trump was the only one trying to stop that. And then the second that team got back in power, they replaced what was taken out, because they were trying to make up for a long time. I don't think that this was an accidental, I was carrying out his plan and I had to get out for 20 years and it was a poor decision. It is 100% my belief that those people want them to be empowered and armed, because doing so leaves them in a position to play out their future plans. So I think that this wasn't an accident played wrong because of poor policy or carrying out Trump's plans. I think this was their plan, and they did exactly
Do you
what they
think we're
wanted.
going back to Afghanistan?
What's that?
Do you think we're going back to Afghanistan?
I have no idea. I just know that the powers that be that are in charge right now want that part of the world to be overwhelmingly armed, and they're willing to drop them pallets of cash and pallets of arms to make sure that they are. Trump came in and stopped all of the plans that they had put in place for a very long time. And so what did they do to make up for lost time? They left $7 billion worth of stuff. That's what I think really happened. I don't think this is a poor deployment of policy. I think that this was an effective deployment of a very underhanded plan that certain people in power want to see fold out. Now, I think that if Trump was in power, it wouldn't have happened, because there was a million other ways to go about doing it. But whether my conspiracy is true or not, the fact remains that none of this stuff happened under the dude you think can't manage it.
I don't have the same confidence. I'll leave it at that. I don't.
Fair enough. And here's the thing, right? I think at the end of the day, my perspective is what I talk about on my podcast. And as you guys can see, this is what I was, I guess, trying to encourage here, right? This is the conversation I'm trying to have when I talk to anybody about this stuff. Is I don't know who's right or wrong. Trippy, here's the thing, bro. You might be right. I might be completely wrong about all this stuff.
Well,
I just have to be
wrong.
What's that?
I always say I can always be wrong, but
that's it. And what I guess my goal is, I think we need to get more comfortable instead of championing our opinions like they're facts, questioning our opinions in case.
Well, November 6th or 7th, you've got to come to a decision, and some people have already made up their mind. And so I'm one of them.
But and the problem is the some people, and I'm saying for both sides, some people have made up their mind emotionally because they feel this is what I have to do. Other people, and I'll point to Daniel because I know that that's how he does it, will make his decision on every ounce of research he can get.
How do you make your decision?
Who, me or Daniel?
Well, that's a good question. You, Zach, I want to hear it too. I'm listening. Give me 5 seconds, guys. Sorry.
So there's one side that says red and the other side says blue. And I go, red. I start the tsunami. Come on, baby.
Thank you. I don't, but this time it will be blue or red or whatever.
Look, look. When it comes to the big wigs, you know where I stand, president and stuff like that. I don't particularly, and this is my ignorance, maybe. I'll do some research on some politicians, but local stuff, I kind of I want
That's
to know
the
what they
issue.
stand for. And it's sad because there are some local people who I probably stand for, and it doesn't matter what they're branded, you know?
The
And
local people are the most important.
right, but some of them stand for what you want them to stand for, and they might just be Democratic because that's the flag they got put under, or they might
Right.
be Republican because that's where they got put under, and they might, who knows, you know. I truly, as conservative as I may sound sometimes, I do have some independent and liberal thinking. Like for a long time, I was very much into socialized medicine. I thought everybody should have medicine and care. I think that's fair, right? Because there's people dying everywhere because they don't have enough insulin or they don't have enough this or that. You know, it's horrible. But I don't think socialized medicine would be the answer because I think it would
It's
get
not.
destroyed.
It's
And
not.
and here's a crazy thing, which gets me maybe a little liberal. I'm all 100% for fair tax. I think it should be a flat tax across the board.
Well, that'll never happen.
No, of course not. But that's just me.
And they say,
so
what
how do
about
I so how do I vote? I research everything, but the reason why, and we've discussed this, I vote red is because of my spiritual and biblical beliefs,
That's a
and they
beautiful
stand
thing.
for a lot of it.
No,
I can't
Zach,
vote. I
you're an
can't
idiot,
vote
dude.
for somebody who stands for. I'm not
Zach,
the idiot.
you're an
I'm the
idiot. I love
genius.
you, but you're an idiot. If you just
So can
came
you
out your
stand? Can
mouth
you stand
and
for somebody who
polite
stands
and
against your
proudly,
belief?
I think that people are more complex than that. I think you're a freaking idiot if you say all of these things are okay, but you agree with abortion, so I have to disagree with you now. Stop it. Think for a minute. Like, it's okay for us to disagree on this one topic. It's okay. It's allowed. I am allowed to disagree with you on this one topic. For me, I don't care. First of all, if you think that everybody who's a Republican is anti-abortion, you're also an idiot.
No, I know that for a fact.
But
Yeah,
you just came out your mouth and said that I'm just gonna vote red.
No,
Then you're
I
brain
said
dead.
that for his.
He was joking.
I said that
Okay,
for him.
all right.
He was
Glad-
joking.
You weren't there to
Now,
see it. I put on a big spectacle, son.
I should
All
let
right.
you hanging out.
here's
Thanks,
my
Trippy.
honestly what
I was
I'm gonna do.
getting
Here's
spanked.
I told this. Zach knows this. I've said this quite a few times. When there was a period in my life years back, early 2000s, where I started really challenging beliefs and really studying things. And this had to do with faith stuff, right? And I learned really quickly when I went to start studying things, confirmation bias is a bitch. It's your worst enemy because it is the easiest thing on the planet to prove yourself right, even if you're dead wrong.
And I
And
will
if
say
you're
this.
dead wrong, go ahead.
I will say this, and I give you credit all the time for this. The number one thing I learned from this guy was what happens if you do the research, whether it's biblical, because it was on a biblical base at this one when we were having this discussion, but whether it's whatever research, if you do the research and you find out everything you've stood for because you were taught to stand for that is wrong, because the research
What do you
proves
do?
the other.
What do you believe? Do you step on what you've always done, or do you believe
And that opened my eyes. It did. It changed my whole attitude for a lot of things.
And so I think that perspective right there, I think it's powerful. I think it changes things. And so what I learned really early on, and I challenge anybody who's got the testicular fortitude to give this a try, right?
Ooh, you just offended a whole audience.
And you can have testicular fortitude without testicles. It's science. You can do it.
Science.
So I honestly, this is my challenge. My challenge is if you can be wrong about everything and study and find information to prove yourself right. So don't do that. Study to prove yourself wrong. Challenge yourself. Study to prove yourself wrong. Because when you do that, one, it takes a lot longer. But two, usually what you're left with is probably some version of the truth. And so you've already made your mind up. I would challenge yourself, if you're a person who likes to research, study to prove yourself wrong. Try to find a way to make the party you're voting for, see if you can find out that they're demons. See if you can find positive things about Trump. If you're on the right, see if you can find all the horrible things about Trump. Find out if Trump's a dictator. Find out if Kamala Harris is a potential leader. Find out the things that Biden. Study against your perspective. Go as crazy as you can. Spend the next 3 months studying the opposite of what you believe. And if you've done that, and you can objectively remove your emotions, remove your bias, actually don't say you're going to do it, but then scoff at what you look at. No. Actually give it a shot. Put yourself in their shoes. Actually try the perspective. Watch what you walk away from after that. You will be surprised at how the way you view this world drastically changes. And I think if people actually care, now here's the thing, most people won't do this, but I would argue that if you actually care about this election, you care about your family, and you think that this vote will make a difference, then you should 100% be doing this, because it's worth it to know the truth. And the only way you're really going to know the truth, to the best of your ability, is to stop listening in your own echo chamber and try to find out the other point of view, and then lay all of the crap on the table once you've done that. It's hard, but it changes things.
I would definitely attempt it.
And on that note, we got to wrap this up, but I think that wisdom was just spewed out, that I want to end it on that note so people can actually take that to heart and do some soul searching and research.
I'm going to do it.
That will. Yeah. And listen, guys,
Check
out Daniel's podcast.
I loved it.
Prophet and Paradox. It's a great show. One of the things is his host they're very similar to me and Trippy. I'm conservative, is on this side, and his host is, liberal. But one thing I loved about him, and he said this, and I love it, he got so frustrated trying to do research because everything was anonymous. And he's like, I want to find out who's telling me this before I believe it. And I really like that. I respected him for that. Jonah kudos to him.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry
you scared him away and he's hiding in Greenland now, but
Iceland.
That's right.
He found, and that's what I think is important about that, right? Because he said, I tried to stop looking, and he was still proving his own point, but he's like, I wanted to get past clips and I wanted to get to source material. He's like, it was so hard to find any source material. All I could find was like clips. All I could find is hot buttons. I couldn't find any actual data. And that's where the research really makes a difference. Guys, I really appreciate you having me on here. It was really great chatting with you guys.
That's great. I hope you come back.
Yeah, we got to do it again, but hey, we'll be back next week. Thank you. We love you guys. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe. We're on Facebook, YouTube. Daniel's on Facebook. He's on YouTube. Check him out. I think, is your YouTube channel Daniel the Q, or is it Daniel Quijano?
It's actually Daniel_ the Q. This is my Instagram above my head. Replace the dot with an underscore, and that's my YouTube.
There it is. Yes. We will have you on again. We had a blast. We appreciate it, brother. We love you. Thanks for coming in. Trippy, until next time.
Until next time. Thank you. Thanks, guys.